I'd like to congratulate Nish's English department on reaching 50 years. That is, after all, that's a milestone. I hadn't realised that it's now about 30 years ago that I first came to Niš. And I came to Niš because Vesna Lopicic, you, Vesna, invited me. And I had done a lot of travelling in the countries that we call Eastern Europe, used to call Eastern Europe. Came to Niš whenever that was, 30 years ago, something like that. And then I ended up visiting Nish's English department more than I visited any other English department. So that tells you something. I learned a lot. And one of the things I learned was, well, it remains a fact, though I'm not here to pat you on the back, it remains a fact that your students I met, as it were, my students in Niš, were well taught. Because I can remember saying to you all those years ago that if I come to Niš, I will do with your students exactly what I do with my students. I think I may have said I might slow down for them. As it transpired, I never needed to slow down. They were with me every inch of the way. And that was a very kind of pleasant surprise. I did do with your students at Niš what I've always done with my students at Edinburgh. I read aloud the texts I'm talking about. And that actually becomes certainly the easiest, but also, I'm persuaded, the most effective teaching method where, let me make it the students in Niš now, the students in Niš hear the language of the text. It goes into the ear. They all had fine reading skills. They had fine conversation skills. But what do they not have practice at? Hearing the language of the language of literature spoken by a native speaker. And then in that sense, things, they got kind of easier, you know. It's, as I look back at it, it's not surprising to me that I kept coming back to the Niš English department. Your students took me into their homes to meet their parents. And then not just once, I have to go again, not have to, it was a great pleasure, but and again, and again. Now, some of them remain friends to this day. Now, of course, they're grown up, they have children, but so the contacts that I made then were, well, if not life-changing, it was certainly a kind of life-affirming thing. Certainly there was. It was a great experience to learn, as I learned in Niš, that English is a structurally simple language. I'd never thought of it like that. But compared to Serbian, with cases and genders and all kinds of things, I realized, I think for the first time, yes. Because I wondered, how is it that all of these students, and indeed other citizens in the streets of Niš, all spoke English so easily, so competently? And I asked my students about it. And it was from my students in Niš that I learned that for them, English was simple in comparison with their language. We could then, of course, focus on the things that make English a world language. And difficult, give it an edge of difficulty. And one of them, of course, you know all of this. This is all old hat to you. But one of them is intonation, which can change words, the meaning of words radically, depending upon the sound of the voice. And there was another one, and I've forgotten what it was. But various forms of things like irony, idiom. So these have to be learned. But the actual basic structure of English, I discover, was easy for your students to master because they have already mastered a much more complicated linguistic structure. What that meant then was we had a good time. We actually enjoyed doing what we were doing, just getting into literary texts. It was great fun. It was great fun. 50th anniversary. What I have to do and mean is wish you all the very best for your future success. I know from my own experience that it's been a tremendously successful department so far. So all the best for the future. I mean that, Vesna. All the best.